Hello everyone. I hope you're all well. Welcome to the Love Deeper and Lead Better webinar with Pastor Mariska. As you know, the Naked Heart is very focused on honoring leadership, faith and unity in everyday life. So today we're very excited because we have a very special guest, one of my very good friends and fellow ministry colleagues, Pastor Mariska. Hi, thanks
everyone.
for joining us. You'll see I'm actually referring to my notes because Danielle can get very sidetracked. So you'll just have to forgive me until I get into the flow of it all. Hello, Philip. Thank you for joining us. So today we just really want to focus on what ministry means to us. Just as we shared earlier, both of us are moms. We're very focused on being great moms, but we also have a heart for ministry. So the whole idea with this is just to help those of you who are currently in ministry to lead better and lead kind of in more of an open-hearted way. And also how to balance that with a family and how to do that, but do both of those things effectively. But also, we wanted to do this webinar because we wanted to reach people who may have a heart for leadership, but are just a bit stuck. Yeah. They've not got to their place. And so Mariska and I can both attest to the fact that we both have been in that place where we had areas in our life where we felt really stuck and we just didn't even feel worthy, maybe, of leading. So that's what we're going after today. So let's just start. So today we're just going to look at talking vulnerably, getting real, those tough things that a lot of people think about but nobody talks about. We're hoping to kind of go after today. Forgive me, I'm looking at my notes. So great. Why don't we just start with you sharing with us, Mariska, a little bit about yourself and what your life is like?
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm a mum. I've got two kiddies, a boy and a girl, and they both back at school. I'm also a wife, and I'm a pastor amongst all of that as well.
Wow. Yeah. And so, hi Esther.
Hey.
So glad you could join us, lovely. So you're a pastor at the moment.
Yes.
And so can you just tell us what pastoring's like as a woman in the church and as a mom?
Well, as a mum, at the beginning it was very tough because obviously we have home life that we have to focus on and balance, and as well as other people that are in your world. Being a pastor, it means you open and a lot of people come to you and need stuff from you and just need you to be with them as well. So it was challenging, but right now I'm in a good place.
That's awesome. And so can you just share with us, what are you really passionate about? What is when you go to sleep at night and you wake up in the morning, what is it that you think about? What is it that really gets you going?
So people, like my family, obviously I'm passionate about my family. They come first. But I'm so passionate about people. I'm so passionate about just seeing people reach what God has called them to, like being that person, that whole person that God has called them to be.
Yeah, we share that. Hi, Rion.
Hi.
We share that, just that love for people.
Yeah. And that goes, and I'll just say, that goes for any age, like from child to adult. It doesn't matter what age you are, just being whole at any stage of your life.
Yeah. And so could you just travel with us and just explain to us, when did you kind of start to realize that you wanted to lead, or that you wanted to be a leader? Can you share that with us?
Well, that started at a very young age. I remember watching my dad ministering to people, like, and it wasn't like all up on stage, and he just simply always used to go on camps with the church and with different people, and he would just sit wherever he can and get out his Bible and just share whatever God has put on his heart. And watching him connecting to people and watching him just be faithful in what God has placed in his heart and just giving that to people, when I saw that, how he was connecting to people, that was when I realized it was something I want to do as well. Leading people.
And it's amazing. I do know the story because Mariska shared this with me, but it's amazing because this was in South Africa, wasn't it? And so would he minister to a lot of the
to our workers? So we used to stay in a very big property, and all the workers lived in the same property with us. And every morning before work starts, I remember getting up before going to school and standing with him, and he would get all his workers together and minister to them and pray for them, and the workers would sing a song before any of this starts, so they would just worship without any instruments and stuff. And even watching him there, and speaking their language, connecting to them in their language as well.
Wow. And so just seeing that interaction and seeing the way that your dad was able to connect with them, that really really touched your heart.
Yeah, that really touched me.
Yeah. With me too. Yeah. So can you share with us your first, after having that experience with your dad, can you actually recollect your first experience leading yourself?
Leading myself, well, I have to think about that one. So,
as a mom,
I think, I think the biggest part of my life, because we can lead ourselves as young people without families, but once your kids comes along, that like changes everything. You have to relook at everything you're doing and make sure that you lead yourself in a way where they are watching you and you know that you're leading them and showing them which way to go. So, as a mom, I think when my son was born, that's when things really started shifting.
Yeah, a lot of people, I just wanted to add there, but a lot of people will say to me, what was it that really impacted you in your life? And so in my beginning days of, way before I was even leading, but in my beginning days of connection with God, my pursuit for him was because I wanted to be a good mom.
Yeah.
So ministry and leading people, that was never, I never went into it hoping to have that. I just wanted to be a really good mom. And I wanted to be okay with what God had given me. And so, as many of you know, I was a single mom for a lot of years. So there was a lot of responsibility. So I felt this sense, but it was out of that I started to find that I wanted to lead other people. Would you
agree with that?
Yeah.
I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's great. So when you were leading, did you notice when you started to kind of venture into leading others and being in a situation where you were influencing others, did you find there were some dynamics there that you use now, or did you find that there was some changes, or can you even explain to us what it was like when you were first leading a group, going from a mom to a group?
So in leading your children and leading people, although there are similar aspects, it's quite different, because you can't essentially tell people what to do like you normally with your children. So
they don't listen.
No, they don't listen. So I think there was a lot of things I had to relook at as well, and it also just helped me grow and helped me see that leading people at the end of the day, like even with my children, is not actually telling them what to do. It's just leading them in a way and showing them like, maybe this is a better way to do things. Maybe let's look at something different.
And did you find that when you were leading people that I guess with the question I want to ask is, what are some barriers that you found when leading
Well, I can remember one specific event about, and I mean that was a big barrier, because to be able to lead people, you have to be able to speak to them. And you have to be able to speak up when things are happening that you don't agree with. And I struggled for a long time doing that, just because I felt that I didn't have a voice and I couldn't speak up. And I didn't, at that time I didn't want to do it, because I didn't want to offend people, and I didn't want to come against people. I just wanted them to agree with them and for them to like me. Yeah.
So just going with the flow and just getting everyone to agree with you. Yeah. And so when did you feel there was a turning point for you in that?
Well, that wasn't actually that long ago. It was about the time when we met and we became friends, and just walking a whole journey of healing, inner healing, and just focusing on things that were stopping me from moving forward, that were stopping me from becoming who God has called me to be. And I mean, things started shifting when we just sat and talk about struggles, talk about things that were hard for me, and just being with each other, praying through that, and just working through some things to get me away from that.
I think it's really important, as just in everyday life. I think we spend a lot of time maybe reading books or listening to sermons or listening to all sorts of things on what we can do to overcome ourselves, but we don't spend a lot of time in relationships. And one of the key things that I have noticed, and which has been really important to me as a leader, is whatever's going on, there's no situation that God cannot reach. There is nothing out there that he's surprised at. So I think it's really important that, and Scripture talks a lot about shedding light into the darkness. And so there's something really beautiful about building a relationship and just saying, this is what's happening for me. There's quite a lot of ideas out there that people have that you can't prophesy over your friends, but I actually disagree with that.
Totally.
I think some of my most amazing prophetic words have actually come through people who have been willing to share their heart with me. And I think it's really important to look at, we're very different people. And I think one of the reasons, that God's put us together is because we're different. So where I'm weak, Mariska's strong, and where Mariska's strong, I'm weak. And she will often give me a perspective that I just never even thought of. And would you
the other way around.
And the other way around,
totally,
And there have been challenges with that, but we've always been committed to talking through things and making it a priority, making the relationship a priority. So in the beginning days when we first started kind of connecting, there was some things that were happening for you, and it would be completely out of the question for me to go, I see this, but I can't talk about this. So I just want to encourage anyone out there who is in leadership, the stuff that you see, don't be scared to talk about it. It's actually really necessary to talk about it. And you can, there have been times where I've gone, well, this is what I'm feeling, but I'm feeling fear around this. So this could be my fear. Can we talk about it? It's really, really, I don't actually think you can be an effective leader unless you're willing to really risk your heart. And it's a risk.
It is. It's
a risk all the time. Oh my goodness.
It's not easy, all the time just sitting and just being so vulnerable and open, because as people, the world tells us, oh no, we have to be strong, we have to be tough. If there's anxiety or fear, just put it out of your mind and just look forward and just ignore it. But actually, when we spend time talking about it and unraveling what's actually happening, you actually get to the thing that's really bothering you. And it's not that bad at the end of the day.
Let's think of an example. Let's think of an example. What's one we can share?
Yeah.
Give us a second. It's really important to give an example.
I'll have it.
All right. It'll come to us.
I've got no idea.
The biggest problem we've got is Mariska and I have been trusted with a lot of information, and we've done ministry with lots of people, and we're very careful to never share a story that people wouldn't want us to share. We actually have millions of examples, but we're trying to think of one that will not dishonor someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're talking about just sitting and working through something. Yeah? So why don't we just talk about the voice thing with me?
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring it up.
Okay.
I was going to let you do
Oh, well. I was like, yeah, I can talk about that. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So we sat, and when I was saying earlier about not having a voice, we actually, myself and Danny just sat and spoke through that, and actually discovered, like, when I was younger, somebody said something over me and actually told me that I had no voice, that I'm just the quiet one, and they are the one that speaks in front of people. I can't speak in front of people. So I took that on board, and I was like, that's true. Like, I don't like talking in front of people. I don't like getting up and speaking in front of people. So that must be who I am. So I went a long time believing that, and I remember being in high school and having to do a talk, oral. Is that what we call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, getting up in class and sharing something. And I actually decided that I'm not going to do that, because I decided that I had no voice, and I took a 0 for that, and that counted at about 80% of my marks. And I decided that
because there was so much fear
that's
around
it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be quiet, and that's who I am. Yeah. And I think agreeing with that kept me so in a box for such a long time in my life, and us just sitting talking through that, and
I can't remember. So what did we do? Did we just
I think we just spoke about
I think
it
actually from memory, something every time you started to talk, that's what it
my
was.
throat would close.
So yeah, Mariska found that there would be times that she wanted to share something, or she would go to share something, and every time she went to share it, something would kind of close her throat. And we just talked about it, didn't we? We just went, well, obviously there's a reason why that's there, and and sure enough, you're up on stage now, aren't you?
That's it.
High five, girl. So I think it's important, probably the most important thing with leadership is just being able to just risk. On one side, there's a risk of sharing. There's a risk of saying, hey, I'm noticing this in your life. But there's another risk of accepting. And James talks a lot about it, and Paul talked a lot about it. But, you know, it's very important that anything that we do in unity. And it's not that everyone has to be exactly on the same page, but you just have to be willing to risk your heart. God will come through, and as we've seen, he did. He really came through, didn't he?
And I just want to say something as well. Some people think that you can't share things because you've got a certain role, like me being a pastor, you've got a certain role, so you're not supposed to share things like that, and you're only supposed to share that with people that you would think in your head are above you or so. But in actual fact, that is such a lie. Like anybody, I think at any stage, if you've got a connection with somebody and you trust that person, I think you can be vulnerable with whoever's around you.
You know, there's a whole, I could go down a big road there, but what I really want to say is I really think part of bringing unity in families, part of bringing unity in organizations, and part of bringing unity in churches is this whole idea of willing to be vulnerable. A title doesn't make you any different a person than if you didn't have a title. But at the same time, I think it's very important that you share with the right people.
Yes.
I had an experience recently where I actually did something that goes against what I would normally do, and I went and shared with a professional person who shall remain nameless. And when I went and shared with them, they didn't have any faith for what I was sharing, and I was sharing something quite vulnerable, and they severely impacted my ability to hear from God. And I was like ringing Mariska going, I'm giving up on everything. I'm giving up on life. And she's like, what's happened to you? Because it's so not me. So and that was a moment I actually had to just apologize to God about that, because that was a moment where I should not have shared. So God will always put people in your world who you can share with. And the more that you sink into that feeling of connected and unity, the more that you'll grow.
That's it.
Great. I thought we'll talk a little bit about inner healing. So we can talk about, we talked a little bit about how you've had some inner healing. Do you want to just walk with us what inner healing means for you and how it's impacted on you as a pastor?
So to me, it means that whenever there's something in my life that puts me in fear or gives me anxiety or something that I feel is blocking me from connecting with God, that is a point where I go, well, there's something there that needs to be gone. And I know there's something that I need to work through to get closer to God again after dealing with those things. So for me, it's simply just being aware in my everyday walk of what's going on. Being feelings, being memories. Sometimes stuff just comes to my head, and anger, all of those things just leads me into connecting with God and asking Him about that.
Cool. One of my favorite scriptures is, it is for freedom that we've been set free. So I personally believe that we're already free. The minute that we accept Jesus into our heart, we're free. There are experiences and there are thought processes, there are belief systems that get in the way of us experiencing that freedom.
That's it.
And so one of the ways to isolate that is when there's fear, because then you go, that's not me. I'm not in freedom. How do I? So would you say, even though you've had some inner healing now, would you say that you still experience fear?
Oh yeah. There's stuff that comes up like I can now it's easier because I can establish it right away what it is and deal with it. But there will be days that go by where that stuff still pops up. Like it's like an everyday thing.
And would you say you just get better at it?
Oh yes, and you get to deal with it quickly. You get to pinpoint it real quick and deal with it way quicker.
One of the ways that I've noticed it is that I seem to go through seasons. I was one of these people that needed a lot of inner healing because there was a lot that was thrown at me. And so some people you will find will need more inner healing. And I just as I say that, I just want to encourage anyone out there, if you are in a place where you're really struggling, it doesn't matter what it is. If you've got death in your family, if you've got drugs in your family, if you've got alcoholism in your family, that stuff that's trying to get you is not what God has for you. And for some people, I really believe, and this is a real personal conviction, that some of the most anointed people will go through the hardest time.
True.
And for some of us, one of the ways that I had to learn how to do that is to actually learn how to fight for myself first. And then out of that, I found that I wanted to share that. So I just want to encourage you, wherever you are in life, just don't let it stop you. The one little key that I'll just give you that I learned in my life is, a lot of us, when we have stuff that's thrown at us, just like Mariska was sharing with her throat, she thought it was her. and we'll fight it. We'll fight it because we think we have to fight our way through it, but that isn't actually the answer. Yeah. What we need to do is surrender. We need to actually let go. And so the more that I have learned to just start letting go of all these things that say that they're going to get me, the more that God kind of came through. And that's where a lot of the prophetic kind of picked up in my life, and also in Mariska's. So I just want to encourage you guys. And I just lost my train of thought. I do that. What were we talking about?
About fighting through things, and don't let anything stop you. Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
Yeah. You just can't let anything stop you. And don't. Hi, Donata. And also understand that if you're having a really rough time, there's a way out. There's always a way out. No one is stuck.
Yeah.
Great. So we've covered a bit about leadership. We've covered a bit about just inner healing. What would you say? What would you say is the biggest barrier for leaders today?
I think something that really sticks with me is people not understanding what grace really is. Like, we get it in our heads, like we read it, people speak it over us all the time. We get it in our heads, but we don't get it in our heart. Like, we don't have that heart connection with God about what grace really is for us. Yeah,
I would totally agree. And so if there's people struggling with that, if someone is in a place where they don't understand grace, could you just walk through what they could do to help themselves get to that place of grace?
I think, well, scripture always helps us, like just going through the scripture and cementing that in your life. But I think when you have that time to spend with God, when you sit down and you just let him speak to you rather than you speak to him and ask him the whole time. I think, like you said, with the surrender, just get in front of him, surrender whatever's going on for you in that time, and just let him speak to you. Let him impart to you what he wants to. I just believe in doing that, you will get that. Like, he will give us what we asked for.
So do you remember, we were talking a bit about the checklist.
Yes.
Can you remember that?
Okay, a bit.
We covered a bit before we got on here, so I'm just reminding Mariska.
So I remember having this thought in my head that if we take a list and we list everything off, and we tick every single box, that we're okay, like that the day would be okay. But I soon found out that doesn't actually work. Yeah. So, and I mean, we can do checklists. We can sit and say, okay, I'm gonna get up and pray at this time. I'm gonna read my Bible at this time. I'm gonna spend time in worship at this time. Then I'm gonna do this. Then I'm gonna do that. And we can tick up all those boxes, but never really connect to the Father. Like, I think it needs to come out of the heart. I don't think that it's just a list to follow. And once I got that, I don't need to tick every single one of those boxes. I've already been accepted, and through that, I want to do those things. It's not that I have to do them anymore. It's that I want to do them.
So out of the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so I would agree. My experience with God, I wasn't raised in a church, and I wasn't raised with a lot of religion. And so it's a real barrier for me to understand what it's like to live with the checklist. Mariska has really helped me to understand what it's like for people like that. But I think it's really important to understand that checklists are, like, they can be strategic in helping you achieve a goal, but it's got to come from a passionate place. And you started to notice that when you were operating out of the fullness of your heart, that it just happened.
Yes,
Hey, you would just be doing it.
Naturally
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
totally it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't a striving anymore. It wasn't a task anymore.
Yeah.
It just became who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And would you say that helped you minister better, or like did you find when you were praying for people?
Oh
yeah,
totally. Doing a checklist, I think for me, like this is personal experience. Following checklists and having to do all those things actually really drained me, which means that I didn't want to minister to people, and when I did, it was like I had to fight to get the words, like I had to fight for the prayers.
Yeah.
Whereas when it started becoming who I am, just flowing from my heart and just becoming me as a person, it just becomes so much easier.
Yeah.
It was like things just started flowing naturally. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Great. And so now you're a mom in
Yes.
amongst all this.
Yes.
Can you share with us your passion as a mom? Can you share what you feel like God's given you for your kids and how you incorporate that? Yeah.
Yep. So in me becoming my step every day of becoming a whole person, of dealing with things in my life, I want that for my kids as well. I want them to be able to conquer things in their life. Whatever gets thrown at them, I want them to be able to be equipped to deal with those things. So my focus every day is just trying to be quiet and listen to where they're at and how they see things in life, which is so different to how we view things.
Yeah.
I mean, things affect them more than what it does us as adults. So just being aware of where they're at, what they're struggling with this, and just helping them through that. Just like not telling them, I try not to. I won't say I don't do it, because I still have times that I want to say, because we are mothers and we don't want you to get hurt or this or that, but just trying to navigate through life and just showing them where to go, where to put their foot for the next step, and just being there for them. Yeah.
So the scripture that actually talks about train a child in the way that they should go, and when they're old they will not depart from it. I heard something the other day and I thought, oh my goodness. When we train our child in the way that they should go, and when they're old they won't depart from it, it's not about our will over the child. It's about God's will over that child. And I know for me, my son is very different to me. We are completely different personalities. I'm a little more kind of bull in a china shop. He's very calm. He likes things quite calm. And so I've had to actually, even though I was a mom before, I've had to relearn this whole area of what it's like for a child like that. And it's made me a much better person, and it's made me probably a lot more sensitive to what it's like for him. And I hope that I am honoring and helping him in his journey of understanding himself.
That's it.
Yeah. So I agree with you. Just being sensitive to what's happening for them. Yeah, you too, Danielle. My Donata has just had twins. She had two. She had two. She had a big boy and a big girl. And then she had two more, and now she's just had twins. So you know what? Be praying for Donata, everyone. She's got her hands full with twin boys. I can't wait to see them. Great. And what would you say is the biggest attack on the body of Christ today? What would you say is the biggest way?
That
that
the
it's
body
under
of Christ
under attack.
Wow, not being unified. Disunity, I think, is the biggest attack. Keeping everybody separate.
I would agree. I would agree. And what do you think we could do if we are privy to this, if we're able to see that there's disunity, what do you think that we could do to try and help bring that gap?
Yeah. Again, it's not just telling people, hey, I've noticed you are not unified, because that doesn't
Not
bring
helpful.
anybody anywhere. It's not helping. I think us just being that example, us being what we want to see change in a situation. So yes, we don't all agree, and yes, we all have different views, because God has made us all individual and unique and different.
Right. Yeah.
But we can still be unified in standing with that person and helping them, like I said earlier, helping them see a different way without telling them they are wrong.
I really, like, a lot of people, a lot of people say to me, what is it that you feel that you do, Danny? And the only title that I'm comfortable with is intercessor. So for me, living in a place where I believe that heaven can happen on earth is pretty well where I live. So in the church body, it's so important to me to be a facilitator of unity and connection. So I will run over hills to anybody that feels that they need that. And so I think if you have a personal commitment, and that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is I refuse to live offended.
Yeah.
So
I was just going to say
that. Go, say it.
What popped into my mind is, yes, there are times when we get angry. Yes, there are times when people frustrate us and we want to strangle them. But in order for us to be unified and move forward, we need to forgive quickly. Like, if we just stop and check ourselves, like, this is what I try and live by every single day. I can have a moment where I vent, and Danny is normally my vent person, or I've got a couple of other people that I vent to as well. If I have my vent and I stop and check myself with God, getting my heart right, walking through forgiveness for that, and then praying for that person and moving forward, like checking yourself constantly and getting past it very quickly.
That's right. Yeah. I've really had to learn this. When you're a visionary, when you see things, it can be very difficult for me, because I am such a visionary that I can go into any situation and I see the breakthrough. It's all I see, actually. I don't ever see problems. I only ever see breakthrough. And so when you're in relationship with people who don't see the breakthrough, there was a real dying to self, and it still happens to me, where I just have to lay it down. And so one of the biggest ways that I've had to learn is each time that I've been offended. Oh, thanks, Donata. You're beautiful too. One of the ways that one of the reasons why I was offended was because it's reminded me of something. Yeah. And each time that I've kind of gone into these situations, so a lot of people, and we do a lot of ministry. I didn't actually mention this, but Mariska and I were involved with healing and deliverance in church together. So we were very privileged and blessed to be able to walk with lots of people who needed some freedom. Yeah. And one of the big things that we found was helping people to get over their offense. Yes. And people can sit there and go, well, that's the church's fault. Well, you can do that. It isn't just the church. There's a million reasons why people get offended. And the more that we walked people through that, the more that we found that there was links in their own childhood. Yeah. So I guess what I really want to just say here is just be willing to just walk through that with people. Yes. If someone comes and says, I'm offended by this, find out where that root is. Find out what's happened for them and hold their hand through that healing. Don't let go until they do. Just sitting with people in their pain can make such a difference. I'm very committed in everything that I do, and Mariska's the same. We're both very committed. We will represent Christ in any situation. And I really think that Christ would sit with that person. He wouldn't reject them because they were offended.
Or point out what they are doing
wrong. Yeah. So leaders, be willing to sit with people, be willing to find out what's happening for them, and go deeper.
Yeah.
You know, I think Christians in general can sometimes stay too surface. Like, don't be scared to go deeper. You might be surprised. You'll go, oh, I mean, I've done stuff with people, and we've walked through stuff, and I've gone home and cried.
Yeah,
oh my goodness,
that's
in my life, God. You know,
that is totally what God does. Like, when we are willing to sit with a person through something and find something, 99% of the time, something that they share pops up in you. And I mean, obviously be wise and you don't deal with it straight away, but make a mental note of it and take it away home and deal with it when you have time. And
just make a choice to not live offended.
Yes.
So when that stuff comes up, see, I think sometimes people will often go church to church thinking that they're going to find their kind of issue. But what I would encourage you to do is to stay in it. Stay in the tough stuff and just go, what does this mean for me? What is this reminding me of? What can I do about this? And just keep at it, and you will find that you will get the breakthrough, because we certainly have.
Yeah.
That's pretty well it, I think. We've covered pretty well everything that we wanted to cover. Probably the most important thing we want to leave you guys with is, actually, there's one more thing. I think a lot of us as leaders, so I'm talking to two people here. I'm talking to people who are leaders, but also people who have a sense that they want to be a leader, but they're not in that place yet. And this is me being quite vulnerable, but leadership actually starts from a very young age. And servant, moving into servant leadership, Jesus, he actually said this himself. Jesus himself modeled servanthood, and he said, whoever wants to become great among you must first be a servant. Mark actually covers this. So what I really want to kind of isolate is you don't have to wait till you're thin. You don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to have your color a certain way. You don't have to have perfect makeup. If your heart is in a place of wanting to serve others, you're in leadership. Yeah. And I would just encourage those people, get out of the box of trying to be perfect and step into the box of what do I already have and build on what you've already got. I really believe that is one of the biggest ways that the enemy is keeping people in a place of, because they feel like they don't have enough. But I've learned, especially in this new season in my life for the last, I'd say, 2 months, that wherever I lack, God will come through.
Yeah.
And we're not designed to have all the answers.
That's it.
We just need to be willing to open our hearts and say, this is what's worked for us.
Yeah.
So whether you're leading an organization, whether you're leading a family, or you're leading a church, they all work together. The more, even with my own kids, if I blow it with my kids, I will own that.
Yes.
If I expect them to do it, then I need to be willing to do it. So for those of you in leadership, I would just encourage you to just shed off this idea that you've got to look a certain way and have the right clothes and have the right hair and be skinny enough and eat the right food and be, oh my goodness.
This goes on and on.
Get into a space of, what do I have that I can share?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome, Hannah. Hannah says, this is so good. That's so encouraging. You got it, girl.
Yay.
You're awesome. I wonder if there's anything else that we wanna just finalize.
That's all right. We didn't have any questions, so. Yeah, I'll just add to what you were saying there about God has made us all unique, and He's already equipped us. Like, He knew before we were even born that he has appointed us for something, and he has made us each uniquely, and it's just circumstances and stuff that happens in our life that come along and derail us from where he's called us. But yeah, like you were saying, people, you are already ready and equipped to do what God has called you to do, and in any area of your life, being a mom, being a wife, if you're in ministry or not in ministry, being in a business, like even there, like you've already got what it takes to become who God has called you to be.
And the other thing is, I think it's really important, like a lot of people are like, well, I'm sitting in a desk job.
Yes.
Can I tell you, I can tell you every job that I've had, I learned something. And it was all part of the journey of who I became. I will do another podcast another time about finding my place in the world. But I just want to encourage you, every circumstance, every experience that you're in, it has a role. And you know, even in a secular job, like ministry for me began 20 years ago. And because ministry for me, I would connect with people no matter where I was. As a hairdresser, I was a hairdresser. And do you know, the majority of my clients that came to see me, I would pray for. Because they knew I was a Christian, they knew that I loved God, and I would have people that would come all the time. They probably didn't absolutely love the way I did their hair, but they loved the way that I would pray for them, and I cared about them, and I wanted to know, and I would ask about their families. And so I guess I just want to encourage you, even if you are in a marketplace job, just know there's something there that God's showing you. There's something that He's teaching you in that season. And ministry, ministry starts long before you ever grace the stage.
Yeah, totally. If you are just willing to sit with a person, like Danny says, be available, connect them to God, and you connecting to God at the end of the day, that's already ministry in my eyes.
Totally. So that's us. That's how we do life. We try to do life open-heartedly. We try to do life completely just surrendering to what God wants to do. Unified, even though we're different. So I really hope that this has encouraged you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to send through any questions, even the tough questions. I'm happy to address those. And what is it? Love better. What is it? Wait. She's a detail. Love deeper, lead better.
Yes.
Talk to you soon, guys. Love you. Bye.